So we're going to have us a huddle. We're going to just spend some time. I'm going to share some thoughts with you. And the reality is, a lot of times, what I decide to talk about when I have 266 people in front of me is something that comes from you. Oftentimes we get a question or three or four, or someone's concerned about something, or multiple people are concerned about something, and it very easily brings up a topic, and then we can address it right here and now. That hasn't happened. We don't have any of that. So the reality is you guys know the drill, and we don't. I had to decide what to talk about. So what I really wanted to do is I wanted to bring you backstage and talk about what do we do? What are the principles that Providence Financial abides by when it comes to helping you work with us, when it comes to helping you invest. So I really titled this, if we're going to be a little official about this, 4 principles that guide Providence Financial's investment philosophies, and I'm just going to share them with you. The first principle that we live by is invest with purpose, not for performance. Invest with purpose, not for performance. Well, what is performance-based investing? Performance-based investing is generally investing to try to outperform something. Well, what are we trying to outperform? Well, when it comes to investments, most of the time we're trying to outperform the stock market. Okay? And when you're in the accumulation phase of life and you're heading towards retirement, there has to be a benchmark. The stock market is a very common benchmark, and it's a good benchmark. There's nothing wrong with that when you're in the accumulation phase of life because you've got time on your side. But the reality is that when you are performance-based investing and you're trying to outperform the stock market, well, then you're taking risk. And when you're 30 and 40 and 50, you can afford to take that risk. But the older you get and then you get into retirement, you really can't afford to take that risk anymore. It's no longer about the performance of your portfolio. It's no longer about accumulation. It's about protection. You're not putting money in trying to grow. You're trying to protect and take money out at the same time in the form of income. So it's a different strategy. If you're taking too much risk, if you're performance-based, I should say, then really you're taking risks that you don't necessarily need to be taking. So everything we do is not performance-based. We're not comparing you to the stock market. We're not trying to outperform the stock market. What we are doing is we're investing your money for a purpose. Well, what's the purpose? Every single one of you in here. The purpose is twofold: to protect your principal and to get you the income you need either now or later from your portfolio. If that wasn't your purpose, you wouldn't be here. Okay, that's what we're good at. So the fact is that our goal is to help you protect your principal and get the income you need from your portfolio. So I think it's, when you think about purpose-based investing, it's no different than any other area of life. Whatever you do, you're going to do generally with a purpose. If you're going to buy a car, you're going to buy a car that's going to satisfy your purpose, right? If you want to haul dirt, you're not going to buy a sedan to get you across town. And if you want to go across town and get places safely, economically, you're not going to buy a sports car. So you do everything else with a purpose, and there's no different when it comes to your finances. You have to be purpose. So we're purpose-based when it comes to your investments. So what does that do? There's really 2 things that does, and that is we identify your goals, okay, so we know what your goals are. And then the second thing that I think is important to just note about that is that we're prioritizing, every one of you, and Providence Financial on your behalf is prioritizing the long-term stability over the short-term market gains. Okay, that's the purpose for your money. But everything we do is investing for purpose, not for performance, and there's a difference. Number 1 is investing for purpose, not for performance. What's number 2? Well, number 2 is honesty as the core of all interactions. And that starts with transparency in every decision. When you first became a client, we went through a process called an Investment 101 tutorial. And in that process, we educated you with regards to the universe of investment options that are out there. And together, we decided how we're going to focus, how we're going to direct our focus on your investments, depending on the feedback that we got and the education you got from us. But the reality is that there's pros and cons for every investment that exists. And a lot of times, I think if someone is trying to sell you something, they emphasize the pros and not the cons. And because we're advisors, it's important for us to emphasize both and make sure that you know both sides of the coin. There's not just one right way to do things. There's lots of right ways to do things. Now, there's lots of ways to mess things up too, but there's lots of right ways to do things. So we work together and we're honest and are transparent in our communications with you. And it all starts from the very first time that we met. And then as life goes on, that doesn't change. as we do our client reviews with you and we have our conversations with you about what's going on in the economic environment, what's going on with your portfolios, there are times that things are going great, and then there are times that things are just not going great. And we're going to be honest about that as well. But each of you know exactly why you're invested the way you are, and that's just because we're transparent, and being transparent leads to honesty. A second thing that I think helps us, when it comes to dialing the honest and honesty as the core of all interactions is the clear and straightforward communication that we have. Years ago, I attended an event where John Maxwell was speaking. John Maxwell's a leadership guru, and he's written a lot of books about leadership. And he said something that just struck me. This must have been 20 years ago, but he said something that struck me, and that is, when you're talking to your clients, prospects, whoever, put the cookies on the lower shelf. In other words, make sure they can understand what you're talking about. The number one reason that we take on clients from other advisors if they decide to leave their advisors because they just didn't understand what their advisor was telling. And if you don't understand what we're telling you, then it's not a good relationship. A week ago today, I was at Bible study. We host Bible study, and I was having a conversation with an individual at Bible study. And this individual, who's a client, who's here, and this individual said, I was listening to this guy on the radio, another financial guy. And he gave me his name. I'd never heard of him. I'm just curious to know whether I heard of him or not. And he goes, man, this guy is smart. He goes, I don't understand a word he says. But this guy's just smart. How do you know he's smart if you don't understand a word he says? The reality is that I think do you want a financial advisor who talks over your head and you don't know what he's talking about, or do you want a financial advisor who you actually understand? I've never been accused of talking over someone's head. And that's what I do on my radio show. That's why I wrote my book. But the reality is you understand, because part of being honest and as a core principle of all our interactions is making sure that we're clear and straightforward. So that's why it's number two. Number one is investing for purpose, not for performance. Number two, core principle that Providence lives by is honesty as the core of all interactions. Number three, this is probably my favorite. This is probably what we're the most known for among our clients. And that is that education is paramount. I often joke with our staff that there's no sales that happen in our office. And I don't believe in sales. What we do is we educate. We educate, we educate, we educate, we educate. And at some point in time, if you think it makes sense to become a client, then you'll become a client. And that's just generally the way that it works, is we believe in education. Knowledge is power, but you have to have the knowledge. And so the reality is, one question that I've never got from any of you ever is, how come you didn't tell me? Because we tell you. And part of that education means that we set realistic expectations. If we didn't, if all of you were ticked off because your accounts didn't do what we say, and I would never put 266 people in a room. We'd have a mutiny. But feel the energy. Okay, it's because we're clear and straightforward in our communication, and it's because we educate you. And when it when it makes sense and it feels good to work together, well, that's when you guys decided to become a client. And it doesn't stop when you signed up. Okay, one of my goals, one of our goals, is to absolutely make sure that you stay educated along the way. And that's why not only do I meet with people, but we hired Chuan Lam, and Chuan Lam is my right-hand man. He's a 17-year veteran in the financial world, and I am only one person. We have thousands of clients, so when you guys call in, you don't want to wait a week or two to get on my calendar, so you talk to Chuan, and he's been with us for a couple of years now. Him and I just gel, but the reality is that it's very difficult to find someone that you gel with as well as I've gelled with Chuan. And the bad news about that is now none of you want to talk to me no more. But we do take a community approach. We do take a team approach, and Juan and I are very much on the same page, and continue to get education from him as well too. But there are several ways that I educate you. And I wanted to run down just some of the things. I'll be brief. The number one way, the most daunting task that I had to take professionally and personally was to write More Life Than Money. It took me 4 years to write, and I finished it about the time that COVID started. Not a good time to finish a book, but in there I talk about the 10 most common mistakes that retirees make and how to avoid them. And many of you have read the book. If you haven't read the book, I'm going to suggest getting it because you might go through there and a lot of it's going to be familiar, but you might pick up a few things that you may want to make sure that you're in tune with as well too. TV interviews. I probably do 3 or 4 TV interviews a month, live TV. And the reality is that I have to prepare for these interviews. And part of that preparation means I've got to have the knowledge to be able to then turn around and give you the knowledge. You know how easy it would be to just get out of the loop when it comes to markets and economics and everything else? But if you're going to be on live TV, you pretty much have to know what's going on because you don't necessarily know what they're going to ask you. So I have to be prepared, but all that prepared then trickles down to you. And if you haven't been to our website for a while, providencefinancialinc.com, don't forget the ink, but providencefinancialinc.com, that's our corporate webpage. All of my past interviews are there. There's hundreds of them. You just go watch them, and you'll learn some things just by watching these 6 or 8 minute snippets, right, where I'm getting asked questions and giving an answer. The radio show. Now we're on KNX, AM 1070, 6 o'clock Saturday morning, 7 o'clock Sunday morning. And if you don't feel like getting up at 6 or 7 on Saturday or Sunday, then we turn that into a podcast, and that's available on Monday. So the fact is that you can listen to our podcast on Monday, and I think we're approaching 400 episodes. And everything is designed to help you have a stress-free and peaceful retirement. And yes, we make it available to the public, but it doesn't mean that you can't learn. We have a lot of clients that listen to our podcast on a regular basis as well, too. And if you haven't listened to it, then I'm going to recommend plug it in. You can just go to providencefinancialpodcast.com and listen to it right on your computer, or you can just search for the Providence Financial Retirement Show on your preferred podcast player and then listen to it. But it's a way that we keep you educated. Newsletter. We send out a newsletter, I think a couple times a month, that keeps you educated. Workshops. If you go to our same website, providencefinancialinc.com, and you click on the events tab, I'm going to guess we have probably 10 or 15 events every month, that either live or webinar. We talk about workshops on required minimum distributions, IRAs, 401ks. We talk Social Security. We have workshops on estate planning. So lots of workshops that you all are welcome to attend. And we have a lot of our clients that will attend the workshops as well too. But it's just a way of continuing to, helping to continue to stay educated. Something we started doing a couple years ago was quarterly friends and family webinars. Okay, we get a lot of you guys, hundreds of you show up, and what we do is every quarter, it's supposed to be every quarter, I think maybe it hasn't quite fallen to every quarter, but we're not gonna change the name. But quarterly friends and family webinar, it allows you to submit your questions ahead of time, and then we'll spend an hour, I do it, so we'll spend an hour, we'll answer your questions. And then I get a chance to talk about what I think is going on in the markets and things that you guys want to know, and a lot of times it's just question driven. But the reality is that we also want you, to bring friends. It's a friends and family webinar. A lot of people are scared to call financial advisor. They don't know who to trust. They don't know. So it's a very easy way for you to plug someone in, and let them decide if or submit a question as well too. But these are quarterly webinars that we do. And then the number one way that I want to communicate with you is through our YouTube channel. Okay? My YouTube channel, we make it available to the public. I don't hide anything out there, but I do it for you. And we have thousands of clients. And the reality is that, as much, when something happens in the economy or the market, or I want to give you guys an update, kind of as a group about what's going on with portfolios or investing for income or the things that we do for you guys. Well, as much as I'd love to pick up the phone thousands of times and call you and give you an update, I just can't do that. So I put out a YouTube video. And if you subscribe to us on YouTube, then the moment I put it out, the moment you're going to get it in your inbox, you'll be able to watch it. And if you're not a subscriber of YouTube, then you'll get it in a day or two. We're going to send it to you with our newsletter, or we'll send it out in an email. But it takes a day or two to get it. And most of the times, a day or two doesn't matter. But if it's something time sensitive, you might lose a day or two and get in it. So the fact is that that's the number one way. But the reality is that education is absolutely paramount, and we live by that. And we educate you when we took you, we educated you when we took you on as a client, and we continue to educate you even as a client. Right? So that's why it's our third core principle of four core principles. So we've talked about principle number one, investing for purpose, not for performance. We've talked about number two is honesty as the core of all interactions. And now we talked about the fact that communication is paramount. Well, what's number four? Well, number four is following the golden rule in every interaction. What would we want? How would we want to be treated in that situation? And by the way, these four principles, following the golden rule, it sounds cliche-ish. It's not cliche-ish for us. I mean, there's no advisor out there that says, yeah, we don't follow the golden rule. What do you know? But the reality is this is not a cliche for us. These principles are principles that we live by. We talk about these principles in our huddles. We talk about how we're going to run the business, what our values are, what our principles are. Values and principles stay the same. How we do things is going to change, but our values are going to stay the same. And as I go through these, I hope some of you have listened. And if there's any of you that feel like, well, they don't do that to me, then definitely you need to let me know, okay? Because that's not the case. That's not intended. But the golden rule. And that means that we're going to have empathy and respect in our relationship. Okay? Whatever relationship that is. By the way, that's not just with you guys, that's with our team members. Our team members follow the golden rule as well too. Sometimes I will have a client, someone that maybe we're taking on as a client, or maybe someone that we're doing a review with, that will say something like, I'm just a small client. I'm just small fish in a big pond. There are no small fish. You guys feed my family. We treat you all exactly the same, and I don't care how many zeros there are behind the number, but the reality is that if we take you on as a client, we promise to follow the golden rule. And I really hope in your heart, as you're sitting here, you can say that yes, you feel like that, because that's exactly how we run our business. That is a principle of our business. It starts with empathy and respect in the relationship. Now, if I can get personal for you for a minute, for me, I have a higher moral standard. It's not a secret that I'm a born-again Jesus Christ follower. That's who I am. It's on my mission statement. It's in our company mission statement. That's what we believe. Regardless of whether you believe that or not, the fact is that for me, I live for a higher purpose. It's not all about the money. It's not all about this. Now, I'm passionate about my business, and I'm passionate about my family. But the reality is I live for a higher purpose, and that is a part of the reason why we are honest in every interaction, and that is part of the reason why we follow the golden rule, is because I have a higher moral standard. And when it comes down to making a decision, okay, whether it's me making a decision or one of our advisors, but really I'm talking about me, and as the head of the organization, it trickles down. We're going to make sure that we follow these principles. Someone that doesn't follow these principles is just not going to gel with us. And one of the things a principle that I follow is really deep to home. It's something I followed. I never actually put a name to it until I was starting to prepare for what I wanted to share with you. But I came up with a name that is very apropos for a principle that I've followed for decades. And it carries over to you guys. And that name it's called the Mother Judge Christ Guideline. It's the Mother Judge Christ principle. There's lots of gray areas in life. There's lots of gray areas when we make recommendations to you. That not everything's black and white. So when it comes to these gray areas, how do we make these decisions? One, would I do it for my mom? Mom, raise your hand over here, Mrs. Pink Lady. That's my mom. They all thank you for having me. Would I do it for mom? That makes it easy, right? Makes it easy. That's just the empathetic side. Could I explain to a judge why I did it? I'm an attorney. There's a legal side to the decisions that we made too. So would I do it for mom? And could I explain to a judge why I did it? But more important than all of those is, would my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ be glorified when I am in heaven with eternity with him? That's why I live, and that's why it's so important. the fact is that it's so important that we follow the golden rule. So I'm just sharing my heart, wanted to share those things. This is what happens behind the scenes. We invest for a purpose, not for performance. Second principle is honesty is the core of all interactions. The third principle is that we communicate. And the fourth principle, and kind of summing them all up, is within all of that is we follow the golden rule. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to accomplish your ultimate goal and the ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal is to do the things you want to do in retirement. Some of you want to travel, some of you volunteer, some of you take care of the grandkids. The reality is you all have a goal in your retirement, and I would call that your ultimate goal. It's very specific. But the ultimate goal is to do all the things you want to do with a stress-free and peaceful mindset. Retirement's a mindset. What good is it if you're accomplishing your retirement goal and the market's crashing and you can't have any fun because you're losing your shirt? My goal in retirement is to help each and every one of you accomplish the ultimate goal of being able to have a stress-free and peaceful mindset while you're accomplishing your ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal is what you want to do. The ultimate goal is a general principle of what every retiree wants, and that is the stress-free and peace of mind. And if you listen to my radio show, listen to my podcast, a stress-free, peaceful, every time, multiple times, that's the goal. My goal is to help you accomplish your ultimate goal by helping you accomplish the ultimate goal. Now, in closing, I really just want to reiterate that everything we do at Providence Financial is driven by our dedication to the financial peace of mind and the principles that we've just covered. Whether it's building an investment strategy with purpose or maintaining transparency and honesty as a core of our interactions, empowering you through education, or treating you under the golden rule as part of our own family, we are fully committed to providing the guidance and support you need to help you accomplish your ultimate goal. And we do this event just to thank you. I want to thank you for trusting us to walk this journey with you. And just know that as you continue to live your retirement dreams, we are right here behind your side, by your side, ensuring that your finances are aligned to keep those alive. I hope you have a better idea of the four principles that Providence Financial follows in our investments. So thank you so much for giving me that time.